What are the things in your life that are taking forever to get better? That maybe if you realigned the way that you were interacting with reality, if you fixed the weak link, if you just changed maybe even just one idea about how you're interpreting the whole situation, it could be better. Hello and happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of Weekly Reflections. Today I wanted to reflect on something I learned reading Stephen Hay's new book. Do I have it here? I always get rid of the covers, so that's not helpful. But, will it focus? A Liberated Mind. And in the book, he uses an analogy that I thought was really compelling, and I wanted to share it with you. So, I have a picture here of three girls. Let's see if it'll focus. In this picture are three girls, and if I told you that they were related, if they're in the same family, what kind of ways could they be related? You might look at them and think, oh, okay, they're three sisters. Or, maybe they're related, like they all have the same mom, but they have different dads. Or maybe they're cousins, or maybe they're married, who knows? There's a lot of different ways that they could be related. And what's interesting is that our minds can do that. Our minds can actually conceptualize these entire different, not just different relations between those three girls, but we can conceptualize entirely different family trees. One relation, one piece of information just between, these three girls can change your entire conception of the whole system that they're attached to. Does that make sense? Is that too heady? Well, here's how that's useful, is one idea, one thing that you've misunderstood, one opinion about yourself, one opinion about the person that you love most might have enough impact to throw off not just that specific dynamic in your relationship or that specific piece of how you think about yourself, but the entire system. The entire system can be different based off of one idea. And that I thought was super compelling. When I was 10 years old, my family moved to China, and my dad used to work for a company called AOL, back when that was a thing. And we moved over there, and I remember going to fifth grade in a school full of people from all over the world. It was kind of like this Western school, so there's people from Europe, but also people from like South Africa and India and Australia, and just kind of like a bunch of different countries all kind of compiled together. And I had a really difficult time socializing in that environment. And I also had just like kind of friends in the neighborhood that were from different cultures, and culture shock can be defined as not really knowing how to elicit the kind of response that you want to get out of somebody, or not knowing how to behave in such a way where you build bonds, okay? So that's maybe like a good definition of culture shock. And so I didn't know how to be funny. I didn't know how to joke. I didn't know how to play. I didn't know how to elicit the response from my peers that I wanted in this brand new environment. And I was really frustrated by that. So frustrated by that I ended up failing fifth grade. Like, I flunked tests and wasn't studying and was bullied a lot. And it was a really, really challenging year. And my interpretation of me failing fifth grade and having to repeat it was, I'm stupid. And that was the wrong interpretation. However, that idea impacted an entire system of behavior all the way up until maybe I was like 23, 24. So when I got back to the United States, I was in 8th grade. I remember taking Mr. Spano's pre-algebra math class and just thinking in my mind, like, I'm stupid, I can't do math, I'm bad at this. And so what I did is I copied off of my friend Gabe, who sat just like right kind of to the front and left of me. And I could see all his answers plain as day. And I don't remember why, like, we weren't required to show our work in math, but I got like an A in the class just off of copying Gabe, because we did these scantrons and I had to put the answers in. And I remember feeling super guilty about this and actually confessing to Mr. Spano at the end of the year. I was just like, hey, I've been cheating kind of this whole time. And I remember Mr. Spano, he's like this really short Italian guy with a big mustache, and he looked at me and he's like, Matthias, I appreciate your honesty, and I'm going to pass you because you're an honest guy. I was like, at the time I was elated, but as an adult, I'm just horrified. I'm like, why in the world did he do that? Because that set me up for such failure. Because then I went into high school, and I went into algebra, and I had no conception of just the basic formulas or basic relationships of algebra, and I continually failed because I didn't understand it. And that reinforced this wrong conception, this wrong link, this wrong idea. I'm stupid, I can't do this. And this led to me getting C's and D's all throughout high school, barely getting into college. I got into college on academic probation, and I went to this small, tiny little satellite campus that was in the basement of a church here in Spokane, Washington. And I got into college, but then I immediately met my wife like in 2 weeks of freshman year, and let's just say I was kind of preoccupied with things besides school, and I wasn't doing well in class. But instead of challenging that in myself, I just thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. I'm stupid, and I can't do school. And it wasn't until I had a professor, my freshman, sophomore year, really challenge me and just be like, why are you writing such crappy papers? And I'm like, that's the best I can do. And he's like, no, it's not. Like, I know you can do better than this. Matthias, you misspelled the word decision. Like, you have spell check, don't you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're not putting in effort. You're not trying. You're not making something that you're proud of. Why not? And I'm like, I can't. He's like, you can. Redo this paper. Do something you're proud of. And this kind of, him contending for me and contending for my intellect was kind of right alongside of me taking a class in anthropology for the first time and learning about culture shock for the first time, and kind of retrospectively looking back and being like, oh, what I was experiencing was culture shock. And I was really frustrated, and it was really hard being in that new school with all these new kinds of social cues that I didn't really know how to read or interact with, and that's why I failed 5th grade. Wait, Mr. Spano, he passed me and I didn't know any of it. I didn't suck at math in high school because I'm just stupid. I didn't know the equations. I didn't know the relationships. And it was like this, cascading effect to like realizing, oh, I am way more capable than I thought I was. And after that, I got straight A's in college. Just like I went from like kind of C's and D's even in college to like shooting up. And then graduated my master's with straight A's, and read like tons and just have really developed and enjoyed intellectual life. But that's because I changed just one link. I changed just one relationship in one part of my past that evolved into an entirely different way of interacting with the whole system. And I wonder for you, do you have friends that you see like they have just a weak link in their system, and you just know that if that little piece was resolved, they'd be so much happier? Like, I think of, do you have that friend that's just dating tons of people, and maybe she's like trying to like, date all these guys, and you're like, why do you keep picking these guys? They suck. And they're like really mistreating her, and she really craves to be desired and find satisfaction with these guys that is just like obvious to everyone around her are just bad. And you just can't figure out like why in the world is she doing that? And it makes sense. It makes sense why she does that. Like maybe there was a form of betrayal, or she was mistreated by someone in the past, and she blames herself in that situation. And so in order to kind of find mastery, in order to like correct her mistakes, she's thinking, okay, I gotta find that same situation and then just be better this time. And if I do that, then it'll work. Because maybe she just has a weak link in how she interpreted or how she thought of this past experience. Maybe it was with her dad, maybe it was with a past relationship or a boyfriend, maybe it was a sexual trauma, but somewhere in her past, she decided whatever kind of dysfunction that hurt her was her fault. And that the answer is to continually repeat that cycle of mistreatment and just to perform better so that it works out differently. But it's not working. And it's plain as day to her friends. Blame's tricky. It can be on the other side of the equation too, where it's dysfunctional. Like take like a circumstance where there's a married couple and the wife cheated on the husband, and the husband's just filled with resentment. This is super common where it turns into, maybe let's say they tried to repair and they're trying to like, work through it. They're trying to like bring it back together, but the husband's just having a really hard time letting things go, and a really hard time moving on from what happened. And it's kind of turning into these habits of behaviors where he's checking her phone all the time, and he's always watching her, and he doesn't really let her spend money in the same kind of way, and then it just continues to evolve into more and more frustrations where he's just like kind of getting mad at everything that she's doing, and even like really mundane, simple things, like maybe she told him, I'm making spaghetti tonight, and then he comes home and there's tacos, and he just lights up. And you look at that and you think, well, why in the world is he getting mad over all these mundane things? And it's because every argument is about that argument. Every disagreement that they're having, every point of contention, every irritation isn't about tacos or spaghetti. It's about the betrayal. It's about broken trust. And in every tiny little instance, he's punishing and expressing frustration and contempt and resentment for the betrayal. And, experiencing that has just been completely overwhelming, and it's dissolving the whole relationship. And to, friends looking from the outside, it's obvious what's happening. It's like, why are you getting mad over tacos? And maybe it's not even evident to him. It's just like, I don't know. I'm just every time I see her, I just feel the frustration. And there's a misinterpretation of a link in there that's impacting the entire system. There's a desire to hold on to that resentment, to not move into healing in the wounds that took place in that betrayal. And maybe, so in the first example, maybe the blame was misplaced onto the person, but in this instance, it's like all the blame is misplaced onto the other person. Everything's her fault. Every ounce of discomfort or irritation I experience is her fault because she betrayed me. And it's infecting the whole system. When really there needs to be an understanding, maybe there needs to be a realization that I'm contributing to the culture of hurt and repair and healing and betrayal. Like the entire aftermath of this whole event isn't just about her making me feel like I can trust her again. It's also me stepping out in vulnerability and taking some ownership over my own feelings to build this thing back up together. And I'm telling you, blame is like this fine point that usually where the system is broken. So when we're thinking maybe together, okay, where in the system, in the network, is my weak link? It's commonly in the place of our deepest shame or our deepest betrayal. And the wall that we build around it so that we don't have to deal with it is some sort of misattribution of blame. It's either we're blaming ourselves for something that isn't our fault, we're blaming someone else for something that we have responsibility in. It's complicated. So what do we do about that? Well, we process it and we face it head on. And there's good reason to, because it's not effective to live in a system that is tainted by a weak link. It's not. In my example, it's like that really just kind of destroyed my academic performance all the way up till I was 23. That's 10 years of damage, 10 years of things I could have been learning and enjoying because I had a misconception over why I failed 5th grade. And it's good to be in line with reality, because when we're in line with reality, then our behaviors elicit the response that we want them to elicit. We're operating in a system that is functioning and is clicking and is yielding the results that we desire. I was putting together a screen door over the weekend, and I didn't look at the instructions, and I didn't use a measuring tape, just thinking, I can hang this screen door, it's probably fine. And it took me 4 hours. I was not in line with reality. I was not paying attention to the intricacies of what hanging a screen door demanded of me. I was trying to circumvent the system, and it didn't work. I had a weak link. I had a misinterpretation. My misinterpretation was, I can hang a door just fine. It's a rectangle, and it goes in a rectangle spot. It's probably okay. Nope, wrong. What are the things in your life that are taking forever to get better? That maybe if you realigned the way that you were interacting with reality, if you fixed the weak link, if you just changed maybe even just one idea about how you're interpreting the whole situation, it could be better. What are the things in your life that the relationships, the discord in your marriage, and the frustration you're having with your kid, the frustration you're having with your own goals, your career. What are the things that just aren't, it doesn't matter how much effort you put into it, it just doesn't yield the result that you want. What is that for you? And could it be that somewhere along the line, somewhere in the system of thoughts and ideas and how you're organizing all of this, there's one piece that you've misinterpreted, and maybe that one piece has to do with the part of you that feels the most betrayed or the most amount of shame. Those are my reflections for this Friday. I hope you have a great weekend. I'll talk to you next week.